In this video, I'm going to show you one way your airbrush might be messed up, how you can diagnose the problem, and how you can fix it. I'm Dave. Please give this video a thumbs up if you found it useful, and let me know in the comments down below if you have any questions. All right, let's get started. All right, the easiest way to show off this problem is by comparing an airbrush that is working well with an airbrush with the problem. So up here, I have my Sparmax Max 3, which I'm really happy with. I'm really happy with the quality and the value of this airbrush. And then down here, I have my FLGS airbrush. I'll have a link in the description below to both of these airbrushes if you want to check them out. Okay, so this here is a side view of my Sparmax airbrush. So you can see here at the front, you've got the air cap that's covering up the nozzle and the needle, and the needle's just sticking out of the nozzle and the air cap. And as I bring the trigger back and forth, you can see the needle coming back. Okay, now I've really zoomed in on it, and you can see in the very center here is the needle, and then just outside of that is the nozzle. And then you see a small dark circle. That's the air gap between the nozzle and the air cap. And then outside of that small dark circle is obviously the air cap. Now, everything here is perfectly circular and concentric, which is what you want. So this is a good example of it working nicely and being in good condition. Now this here is a close-up of my FLGS airbrush, and it looks very similar. So you've got the air cap, and then inside the air cap is the nozzle and the needle sticking outside of the air cap and the nozzle. And again, as I pull the trigger back and forth, the needle is coming back and forth. Now this is the end-on view of my FLGS airbrush, and you can see the needle in the very center, and just around the needle is the nozzle, and then around that is the air cap. But here you can start to see the problem. So if you look in the bottom right-hand side of the center, you can see that there's no actual air gap between the nozzle and the air cap. So the nozzle is pressing up exactly against the air cap, and that means that there's a problem here. So what's going to happen is the air cap basically directs the air over the nozzle and the needle so that it can atomize the paint correctly and spray it out. And because the nozzle and the air cap are not concentrically aligned, there's basically going to be an issue. So all the air is going to come out on the top side of all the air is going to come out on the top side of the needle there and not on the bottom side. And then the spray pattern is not going to be even. If you're liking the video and finding it useful so far, then please give it a thumbs up. Another way we can diagnose this problem is by putting some water in the airbrush and spraying it out and looking at the spray pattern. So I'm just going to put some pure water into my airbrush. Okay, so I have some water in my Sparmax airbrush, and I'm just going to spray some air and pull back on the trigger. And you can clearly see the cone of water is nice and even and gets bigger and smaller as I pull forward and back on the trigger. That's looking real good. Okay, now I have my FLGS airbrush here, and it's a different story. So as I push down on the trigger and pull back, the spray of water is not going to be a perfect cone. It's going to be warped to one side because that flow of air is disrupted by the nozzle and the air cap not being centered on each other. So now I'm just going to pull back on the trigger, and you can see that it's biased to one side. It's not perfectly even. Okay, from this angle, you can really see that it's not coming out in a direct line. It's coming out at a weird angle and is offset. And that's all because the nozzle and the air cap are not lining up correctly. It's forcing the air out in a weird pattern. Okay, to demonstrate this a bit further, I'm just going to do a little bit of spraying with both airbrushes. So this is my Sparmax, getting nice, even application around, and it's going on nicely. And now here with the FLGS, we can see it's really not spraying very well. So it is coming out to some extent, but it's not super reliable. So it's working, but one problem you see is it's kind of hard to see, but I'm getting tons of tip dry. Tons and tons of paint is building up on that needle there because it's obviously not getting all sprayed out correctly because the airflow is incorrect. So it still sprays, but it's just not as well as it could, and there's lots of paint buildup on the actual tip itself. And again, you can see there that even after just 30 seconds of spraying, there's tons of paint all over the needle, which is really not ideal. It's not ideal, and it's definitely not normal to get that much paint so quickly. But that's simply because the airflow is not there and it's not getting sprayed off the needle. It's just hanging around on the needle. For my airbrush, I think I'm going to need a new air cap and nozzle because they're such high precision parts. It's hard to tell which one is at fault. You might also see a problem like this if your needle is bent, in which case you'll need a new needle. And sometimes the actual nozzle itself can flare out and not be perfectly round, in which case you'll need a new nozzle to fix this problem. I hope you found this video useful. If you did, please give it a thumbs up and thanks for watching. Cheers.